John McClain on Football Night in Chicago says that the Bears have a specific set of things that they're looking for in a potential trade for the number one overall pick. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the top 5 wide receiver prospects I would like to see the Bears go after and get in this NFL draft. We're going to go into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
All right, Bears fans, welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central. I'm the host here, Haize. We're one of the hosts here, holding it down for C-Dub and Bobby on The Daily Show. And so John McClain, who was on Football Night in Chicago, appeared and said that the Bears are definitely considering trading back for with the number one overall pick. That's not any news. There's no breaking news in regards to that. I think the whole football world is waiting to see just how far back they do. But what I want to point out in this one is that McClain said specifically they do not want to go lower than the Colts at 4 because you assume 2 quarterbacks are going to be gone, and that will leave Addison or Will Carter for them. This is kind of one of the, not I won't say the first, but as we're talking about the Bears possibly moving further down, this is one of the first people to say that no, the Bears do not want to go lower than 4th because they are seriously considering Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. Now, I'm not saying let's take that as gospel. I even yesterday did 5 draft prospects on the defensive line not named Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, so go and check out that video if you want to know other draft prospects on that defensive line. Bobby even dropped an episode as well on a defensive lineman that could go in the 2nd or 3rd round as far as for the Chicago Bears. But, you know, one of the things that has been a big topic of conversation, you have even some people saying, hey, the Bears should trade back twice and get even more picks. But if the Bears truly do view Will Anderson or Jalen Carter as a generational talent, they very well may not want to go lower than that 4th overall pick. Now, all remains to be seen. One thing we know about Ryan Poles is he doesn't necessarily look at things conventionally, and that's maybe in a positive way or could be in a negative way, depending on how you look at the Bears passing up Pickens, who they could have drafted instead of Kyler Gordon. But, you know, all that plays a part into things. Really, nobody really knows what's going into the mindset of Ryan Poles. Now, the Texans are in a position to trade for him. The Colts are in a chance to move up for him. One said that, you know, so the Bears could get up to 10 picks. So we'll see what happens into that. Not in one trade, but have up to 10 picks in this upcoming draft. So it really just depends. It really depends on what ends up happening. So, you know, certain teams with the Texans and the Colts, I think the Texans have 2 first-round picks in 2024 draft. So maybe the Bears can get not only a pick in this draft and then one of those picks, but also get a pick in the 2024 draft, which hopefully could be Marvin Harrison Jr. But that's a story for another day. But it's just interesting to see, you know, what ends up happening and how far the Bears are willing to move down. Because if truly they do have their sights set on Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, it could push, you know, not that they won't get a lot of draft picks back in this draft as well, but we could see some future assets in upcoming drafts come, and that could future-proof the Bears in a couple of different ways. It gives the Bears an opportunity to take a look and to take some shots at some players this year, and then to also see, like, hey, if the Bears, just imagine if the Bears were to trade and get a first-round pick in 2024 draft on top of that, if the Bears do end up putting together a playoff team in this upcoming season, they could still have a high draft selection either to trade down or do some other things with. Again, you just never know. Ryan Poles, this is really going to be a big test of what his mindset is on building this team and things like that. So we'll continue to see and monitor just what goes on with the Chicago Bears and that first overall pick in this upcoming draft. Now, next up, I want to talk to you guys. I already talked. This week, we're kicking off our draft prospect coverage. So I'm going to be giving a series of videos, a different position every day on the top prospects I would like the Chicago Bears to take a look up in this upcoming draft. Today, we're actually covering wide receivers. And so the wide receiver list is a little bit more straightforward. Most of these people that I'm going to be presenting are players that I'm going to be presenting in this list are probably all going to go in the first round. There are a couple that I threw in on the back end there that could go later in the first or even more so in the second round. So the Bears could still get a wide receiver. Now, one of the things I want to preface this with saying, you guys know I've been very vocal at the fact that I don't necessarily see the Bears making a move at the wide receiver position like some Bears fans want. When you look at the fact they got Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Equanimous St. Brown, Velus Jones already, those players under contract. So we'll really see what the Bears end up doing with the improved offensive line. They may very well look at the wide receiver position, look at Velus, look at Chase Claypool and just see these are players that we really haven't got a chance to evaluate. Well, Vegas because of his own doing, and Chase Claypool because of injury and him coming into the season midway through. They may not look to take a high pick at the wide receiver. Not to say that they won't take a chance on one. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to get into this list. And the first player on this list for me is Quentin Johnston. Now, I've been talking about him a lot. If you guys have been following the show for a lot, this is a wide receiver. He was a junior out of TCU. He's 6'4", 212 pounds. He's right now viewed almost universally as the number one wide receiver prospect in this draft. He's slated in most drafts to go anywhere between 9 and as low as about 15th or 16th in most mock drafts. There are some that have him a little bit higher, some that have him a little bit lower, but that's kind of the average spot that you'll find him in. Now, depending on what the Bears get back, if they get multiple first-round picks back, maybe they still get a top 4 pick and get another one, or maybe, as some Bears fans would like to see, trade down. He is somebody who could be on the list for the Chicago Bears if Ryan Poles does go wide receiver rather than defensive line like a lot of people, me included, think he's going to do. Quentin Johnston, you can do a lot worse than him. Now, while he's not slated to be like a top 5 pick or anything in this, it's not because of his skill level. This guy has one of the perfect combinations of size, athleticism, and speed. He gets off of coverage very quickly. He's a solid route runner. There's sometimes if you have a more physical cornerback in there, he doesn't necessarily always play the best in those types. He works best in a spread or vertical type system. Something that I do think that Luke Getsy can definitely work him into and hopefully adjust the offense a little bit to accommodate him. Again, he'd have to earn that spot, but he has the position, the potential to be a true X factor receiver at the NFL level. Now, again, like I say over on Chicago Bulls Central, potential isn't always realized. So just because he has the potential to do that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be, but he offers a nice, tall wide receiver, a nice, tall target for Justin Fields, somebody who does have enough quick speed to get off. He can really work well in slants. You can even work him into the running game a little bit if Luke Getsy wants to get creative. I'm really high on this guy in Quentin Johnston. I don't necessarily think the Bears are going to go that. I don't think he's going to be on the board, or they'll be either draft too high to get him. But at the end of the day, this is a player that if the Bears do decide to go wide receiver, you can do a lot worse than Quentin Johnston in this upcoming draft. Now, the next player that I have on this one is almost, again, the universal second best prospect in this draft. Now, he's slated anywhere to go between 15th to kind of lower in that first round in a lot of mock drafts. Most have him between like 15 and 18 in that area there. And this is Jordan Addison. This is a junior out of USC. He's 6 foot, 175 pounds, not as big of a target as Quentin Johnston, but he does still offer a lot of positivities. He can get separation at every single level of the NFL game. He's crafty. He's really good at route running. He's a weapon, and he can be a high volume target. He's proven the ability to be a high volume target, kind of replacing what we had in A-Rob a couple of seasons ago. He has great awareness in how to use space and operate in that space, and he can be a physical wide receiver. Now, the one thing with him is he doesn't have the amazing blaring speed. He has a nice combination of size, athleticism, and speed, but his speed isn't anything that's necessarily going to wow anybody. Now, the physicality of the NFL, there are some doubts around him if he's going to be able to do that, and there's a little bit of a concern when it comes to drops with him. Now, we already have a wide receiver in Velus Jones who we call him Dropsy Jones here. He's already susceptible to that, so the Bears may want to overlook that, but if you can get him to work those things out of his game, he could be a damn good wide receiver prospect for the Chicago Bears in this upcoming draft. Now, the next one up is a player that I'm very familiar with, and that's Jaxon Smith out of Ohio State. I'm not going to murder the man's second last name. He's a junior. He's 6 foot, 198 pounds, playing in the Big Ten, playing with C.J. Stroud, so he's similar. He's used to playing with C.J. Stroud and Justin Fields are kind of similar, but very different, but he doesn't have the elite level explosiveness that you want to see from a wide receiver at the NFL level. That's really the biggest thing that could potentially hold him back and has held him to be at more of a lower end first round pick in most mock drafts in this upcoming draft. And it's a possibility that you can get him in the second round. That's one of the downsides to the Bears giving up their own second round pick in this upcoming draft, because if the Bears had held on to that pick, you could have got a receiver in Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I'm completely murdered his name, but you could have got him in that. But again, woulda, coulda, shoulda. We're not going to focus on that a lot. He definitely is going to need some development as far as running on the outside. And then He's only had one season of true college production, but he's a great route runner, has great body control, and he has great hands. He's not going to have the drops concern as the last player that I talked about, and he could be a very good wide receiver that can come into that slot position and maybe do some big things for the Chicago Bears and pay big dividends immediately. Now, the next player that I want to talk about, number 4 prospect on the list, is Rashee Rice. I think I'm saying his name right. This is a senior. He's coming out of SMU. He's 6'3", 206 pounds. Again, if you guys can tell, it's something about bringing a big target to Justin Fields that I really like. He has great hands. He has great size. He has the athleticism. He also has that mentality from big-time wide receivers. We all know, you look at the Ocho Cincos and things like that, big-time wide receivers usually have these big personalities. He has that, and he's a leader. Now, again, we have the leaders on this team, but he is somebody that, as he develops in the NFL, could be a very big leader for this team as well. He has a great ability to make defenders miss when he operates in space after he catches the ball. He's had a consistent development line where he's gotten better every single season he's been in college football. Now, one of the things here, he's not the best route runner. So that brings some concern there, especially if you end up putting him in the slot. He's not the greatest route runner, but we've seen in the NFL, if you have the size, if you have the athleticism, if you have the hands and the moves once you catch the ball, you don't necessarily have to be the best route runner in the NFL to have success. And again, with that, him playing with less space in a pro-style offense could be a concern there. So, we'll see what goes on with that. But this is a guy that the Bears very well could get in the second round, no matter where they draft. And I wouldn't mind it if the Bears do. Matter of fact, I wouldn't mind if they try to move up to go out and get him again. That's if they have wide receiver on their top list of priorities in this upcoming draft. Now, the last prospect that I'm going to talk about is Josh Downs. This is a wide receiver out of North Carolina. The biggest fault with him is his size. He's 5'10", 171 pounds. We don't necessarily have a lot of size in that wide receiver core. Yes, Chase Claypool, we'll see if they bring N'Keal Harry back, things like that. But the lack of size could be the biggest thing that holds him back in the NFL. But we've seen other players overcome that lack of size with pure skill. Now, he also has an issue with drops, so that's something that you want to look about. He projects to only be at best a slot wide receiver in the NFL. So you have to ask your question, is that worth a second round pick? But he's dynamic. He's explosive. He's had a very productive career, and the yards after the catch tell the story that he could be a very big piece and be a threat out in the open field in the wide receiver position for the Chicago Bears. But you guys, let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Those are the prospects that I'm presenting. So just to go over them again, we got number 1, Quentin Johnston out of TCU, the number 1 wide receiver prospect in all the drafts. So, of course, he's going to be on this list. We got Jordan Addison out of USC, Jaxon Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State. We got Rashee Rice out of SMU, and Josh Downs at number 5 from North Carolina. Again, a little bit smaller wide receiver. Let me know what you guys think on those prospects and everything down below. But that is it for today's episode of Chicago Bears Central. Make sure you're following the show at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message or voicemail for our mailbag episodes, which air on Fridays, you can give your own prospects. The number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related because of you guys. Like I like to end every episode on. Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.